What's up, guys? So there was some pretty big news with the Baldur's Gate 3 community and the release of Patch 7 and some of the things that Patch 7 brought with it. Patch 7 was launched on September 5th, and it added quite a bit of depth to the already really deep game. It added some new dialogue options, some new romance options, even some new evil endings, but I think the biggest thing that Patch 7 brought with it was the addition of the official Larian mod manager. In case this is your first Larian game, Larian is, unlike a lot of other studios, is very friendly towards the modding community, even going as far as releasing official modding guides on their YouTube channel. Larian added the use of the BG3 Toolkit in Patch 7, which allowed modders to make UI changes, add new classes, add new races, but a lot of the more in-depth creation tools like map creation, quest creation, things like that, were locked behind a heavily restricted wall. That is, they were locked until about a week ago. Modder by the name of Siegfried has found a way to unlock the toolkit and basically give modders free reign of all of the assets within Baldur's Gate 3. In today's video, we will go over what that means for the BG3 community and what potential ramifications could come from this. So let's jump into it. In March of this year, Larian had the upsetting news that they would be stepping away from Baldur's Gate 3, and there would be no DLC or a Baldur's Gate 4. This came as a shock to a lot of the community as the game was a massive success, winning a ton of awards, including Game of the Year, Best Multiplayer Game, Best Role-Playing Game, and a slew of others. So it comes as no surprise given Larian's friendly attitude towards the modding scene that they would release a modder's playground like the Toolkit, essentially allowing players to create their own DLC in a way. So, what can you do with the toolkit? Yes, you basically have access to every single asset in Baldur's Gate 3, and Baldur's Gate 3 is a massive game. The scale of BG3 is so massive that it opens the door for modders to create custom maps, custom level designs, quests, you name it. A competent modder could even create an entire fan-made DLC, complete with voice acting if they had the means to acquire it. There are two YouTube accounts that I've come across that have posted some things that they're working on with the toolkit. I'll post links to both of their channels in the description of this video. The first one is S, and he is currently working on a custom map for Avernus. As you can see, the map is still pretty rudimentary, but this is amazing given the short amount of time that he's had to work on this. It would be so cool to be able to go into the Hells and potentially see more of Karlach's story, or maybe have an epic battle with Zariel. Super exciting stuff. The other YouTube account is an account by the name of Lotrich, who appears to be working on some sort of forest map level. This reminds me a lot of the Forsworn area and Skyrim. I think the name of the area was Druidak Redoubt. I'm not really sure. It's been quite a few years since I played Skyrim, but it's the area right outside of Marketh where all the Forsworn are. But looking at the scenery, I could definitely see some sort of bandit camp here, or bandit ambush, or maybe some sort of dragon cult quest here, maybe a dragon cult devoted to Tiamat. Really, really cool idea, and I'm really digging and enjoying the scenery. Also, amazing work for just a few days of having access to this tool. There's a lot that modders can do with this toolkit. As you can see, with just a few days work, these guys have been able to give a general layout of some really cool custom map ideas. With the right support, or maybe even some crowdfunding, we could have studio-level fan-made DLCs, but I have a feeling that Wotc or Wizards of the Coast might squash this dream in its cradle. If you're new to Baldur's Gate 3 or Dungeons & Dragons or both, you may or may not be familiar with Wizards of the Coast. Being an almost 30-year Magic the Gathering player myself, I'm intimately familiar with Wizards of the Coast for better or for worse. Without going super down the rabbit hole as to who Wizards of the Coast is and why they're relevant to the release of this toolkit, I'll just keep it basic. Wizards of the Coast basically owns Dungeons & Dragons. They own all of the assets that Baldur's Gate 3 is created with, all of the places, the deities, the classes, basically all the metadata that encompasses BG3 is owned by Wizards of the Coast. Baldur's Gate 3's characters, their backstories, and the overarching story of BG3 is, however, owned by Larian Studios, with the licensing used from Wotc. So why is this relevant to the BG3 toolkit? Well, unlike Larian, Wizards of the Coast is not very friendly towards their assets getting used in ways that they do not make the absolute most profit off of. There have been many cases where Wotc has dropped the capitalistic hammer on the community, but the two most notable cases are the Pinkerton incident and the Open Gaming License incident. I won't go super in depth on these two incidents because they could be whole videos in their own right, but I'll simply give you the TLDR. The Pinkerton incident, Wizards of the Coast sent literal mercenaries to a dude's house because he got early access to a new Magic the Gathering set and posted it on his YouTube channel. You heard that right. The company that makes Dungeons and Dragons sent literal hired thugs to one dude's house because he got access to some pieces of cardboard he wasn't supposed to have yet. The Open Gaming License incident, Wotc attempted to essentially shut down all third-party content and tax creators 25% of any and all revenue that they generated off of their content. This could be podcasts, custom campaigns, Twitch streams, you name it. If you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons or anything related to Dungeons and Dragons, Wotc wanted a cut of your revenue. They later walked back these proposed changes after basically the entire community revolted. They apologized for the way they were going about things, hoping to heal the rift in the community, but that still doesn't change the fact that they wanted to implement this. So Wotc has a precedent and a history of cracking down on things like this modded toolkit. As cool as this toolkit is, and as friendly as Larian is towards the modding scene, I don't think this rendition of the toolkit is going to last for very long. Even though Larian wouldn't really care that the community has access to this, Wotc will most likely care very much. There's a lot of ways that Wizards of the Coast could force Larian to not allow players to have access to this. Probably the easiest way would be just to patch it out, release a patch that renders the patch 7 toolkit unusable, or they could potentially implement some sort of anti-cheat engine. The second one I don't think is as viable because Larian does have a pretty strong stance to allowing people to use mods in their game, and an anti-cheat engine would essentially recognize mods as cheats. So I don't think that one's an option, but you never know. Wotc is pretty greedy, and they have been known to do things like this in the past, so I really wouldn't put anything past them. Given Wotc's awful PR as of late, they may choose not to get involved, not wanting to risk another huge scale revolt like they caused with the OGL incident. But Wotc has also been known to be pretty short-sighted, and doing things like this is not outside of what I would expect them to do. But what do you think? Do you think Wotc will get involved and force Larian's hand? Do you think they'll let it ride just to not piss off the community any further? Let me know in the comments section. Me personally, I'm really hoping that Wotc decides to let this one lie and let the community make us some awesome mods. I'm really looking forward to playing some of the things that I've seen and anything else that looks good and polished. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. I make weekly content focused on gaming news, gaming reviews, build guides, stuff like that. Until next time, have a great day/night. See ya.